Hello, welcome to a new episode of Witchy Business. Um, what are we talking about this weekend?
Well, this has been something that we have been talking about a lot recently because we hear this phrase a lot from people we know, from our friends, but also we see it a lot online on social media. The phrase is, it's just not that deep. And we have been discussing this because it is that deep. It is deep.
Life, by the way. It is that deep. It is that deep.
Yeah, it being life.
And just for fun, because it is that deep, but it's also that fun. In French, my friends tell me you keep tying knots in your brain. And I find like translating sayings like this, yeah. They're like, it's really not that deep. Like you're just trying to tie knots in your brain. And I'm like, but it is. It is that deep. There is that much to inquire into, and I was going to say try to figure out, but at least like be curious about.
Yeah. I like that way of phrasing it, tying knots in your brain, because that actually really helps to understand what that phrase means. It's not that deep. I think, yeah, it's like overcomplicating. It's like, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're saying life is really complicated, but there are so many layers to everything.
That's it.
And and so it's like you said, like, be curious. I think you and I'm gonna make an assumption and say that most people listening we like to be curious. We like to question things. We like to process and think about things in a deep way. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so
no, not at all. I mean, obviously I don't think there is.
Yeah.
I think like
you are included in that.
I think like the trap in there is to, like you said, like we don't think it's difficult. We think it's something to inquire into, and we're curious about the layers of life, the layers of emotions, all of it. But there is a trap to fall into, is like when you're always inquiring about yourself and you're always trying to go back to your original trauma, if there's multiple, and there probably is, and always going back to like the difficult parts of your life or the painful parts of your life, and making depth equal like pain, discomfort, and that kind of like drudging through muddy waters kind of thing. Whereas depth can also be just really clear blue ocean, and it can be full of light and full of love and light. And that's the other not trap to fall into, but I think part of what makes people want to say it's not that deep is that kind of side of the well-being community that is all love and lightness, and so
what you mean, that's like the love and light is like it's not that deep, or it's looking at it that way, that
it's like, those people who automatically try and go into like the depth of something from this like love and light perspective of
I see,
and who just kind of attach every discomfort in your life or growth opportunity or something in your as to like, oh, but that's something that you haven't healed ancestrally, or which it is sometimes, but there's like that side of the the well-being space, that's a very spiritually bypassing, I guess.
Yeah,
I call them lights.
Yeah,
They sign all the messages with like sending you love and light. I say that in full awareness that I finished by like sending you lots of love.
Yeah, me too.
I
feel called out
to say like truth and depth.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but what you're saying is, yes, it's coming from potentially a place that isn't as authentic or isn't as real as it as deep as it could be.
Perceived depth.
Yeah. I feel just that phrase in general is like, it's not that deep, and I just, it really plays on my mind because I think about things so deeply and I can't not. And so I feel like a little bit attacked when I see that, when I read that, you know, because it's like, how can you not think about things? But I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? It's they're bypassing. If you're potentially, it could be bypassing if, you know, everything's fine, like let's just, you know, not overthink it.
It's really interesting for me when you just say like you feel a bit attacked, because for me it's like, oh, that's really sad. They're like missing out on the depth.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like at the moment, I'm really in the space of the power of feeling your emotions. And more and more, and it's what I experience and it's what I believe in and it's what I'm researching and working with and getting feedbacks from clients that, you know, concur, is really that the deeper you allow yourself to go, the more you're able to feel of the good stuff. And so by telling yourself that life's not that deep, and so by staying in like the shallow part, you're missing out on the beauty and the full potential of life, and therefore your full potential. I'm going to keep going with the metaphors with the water, because obviously that's on my mind. But if you're at the beach and you're staying in the shallows, you're missing out on like the absolute stunning beauty that there is if you go diving.
Yes.
And you're not giving yourself like the opportunity to breathe underwater.
Yeah. I love that.
Me too. I was like, I'm a bit like, where does that come from?
Yeah, that is such a great visualization or analogy visualization. Just what I'm picturing is really beautiful right now. Yeah, I think if you, I mean, I don't
You're
even
like
know.
in the ocean right now.
I am. I'm just thinking like, I mean, if you're not doing that, then you are, it's, I think what I want to say is like, it's like not coming out. It's like what I'm thinking about right now is not only are you missing out on all of this in the deep end of the water, but it's yes, that's bypassing, but also that's society. That is a lot of what society knows. That's like what I feel. I mean, I can only talk from my own experience, but that's how I've been brought up. You know, it's like, don't feel too much, don't think too deeply, don't say things that might offend people or that are a bit taboo, or and kind of then as a result not being curious about it as well, because it's like the murky, okay, I'm going again with the water, it's like here's like the murky waters, like you're not allowed to go over there and see, but actually like what you might find is like this amazing treasure but you're never gonna get to that if you don't go where people are telling you not to go. And so I feel like it's a lot of like what's ingrained in us is this idea of like not being too deep or not.
And like we want to keep ourselves safe by staying comfortable, because there is a phase of discomfort. It's I've been deep sea diving, and when you go backwards from the boat, you don't see what's underneath. It's just it's just really dark water, and I'm really comfortable in the water, but but then you go deeper and deeper, and you start like reaching the depth, and that's when you start seeing like fish and all of that, and that's where the beauty is. And we're not equipped societally and culturally to go through that discomfort phase. And it's not, to me, it's not only that we're robbing ourselves of the opportunity of like witnessing everything that life can bring to us and all that beauty, but it's within. We're not giving ourselves the opportunity to reach our full potential. And that's the part that for me is really sad.
Yeah.
Because by keeping ourselves in the shallow end and keeping ourselves safe and comfortable, we're only allowing ourselves to grow to a certain capacity and to exist at a certain level. And it's like we're not allowing ourselves to take up this space to reach our potential, to receive as much as we're actually like created to receive. And that's the part that's heartbreaking, is that that's what we're robbing ourselves of.
Yeah. And also in business as well, as business owners, as conscious business owners, we talk about this all the time. You can, it's we want to do business a certain way. We want to be conscious entrepreneurs. We are conscious about the way that we do things. And if you're not, again, that really ties into that. It's you are missing out. You might achieve this external version of success, the money, the title, whatever whatever that external version of success is, but you're missing out on the internal success because there's no curiosity there as to who you are and what success means to you internally. And the more you walk towards that, the more you walk towards your version of success, the more there is to see, right? And so I guess that's what, when we talk about like, but it is deep, that's what we mean by like the layers and layers. It's like there's always more. Like the ocean is we've not even explored all of it. Like there are some parts where it's so deep. Doesn't that blow your mind?
We know more about the moon than we know about the depth of the ocean. And it's like the deepest trench, the Marian Trenches, you fit Mount Everest in there, and there's still room to go. And I think
this
they've only like been able to send one robot submarine down to the depth of it, and it was like a big thing. And this shows how much I have spent watching underwater documentaries as a child.
I love it. What do you think's down there?
I don't know, and that's the thing. But there's like a whole ecosystem down there that we're not like respecting. And actually, I was reading something that there's mining that's starting in like the big depth, because they found that there's compounds that they can use to replace the nickel and the iron ore that they already use to create like electronical compounds. There's like a mineral in the depth of the ocean that replaces both of them. And because most of the ocean floors don't belong to any country, it's like freer to go and explore. But like, it's like we haven't ruined enough of the planet, we're now going to go to the depth of the ocean. And I feel like yeah, we're going on a massive like tangent about
but this is like the
but we don't know
depth of the
like,
conversations. Yeah.
And life is that deep, and you can have such deep conversations. And it's just it truly makes me sad that people like don't want to go there.
Yeah, because even just that, you know, lots of people when I ask someone like, well, what do you think's at the bottom of the ocean, you know, often the answer is like, I don't know.
Why?
Like, oh,
and then I'm like, well,
oh, okay. Yeah, but like that's and I'm not, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm not saying like don't do that, but it's like I really enjoy hearing opinions and thoughts, because you don't know, like no one knows, that's the whole point. But it's like,
and that's
you can
it's that potential of learning. And and it is, I'm gonna keep saying it, it is that deep, and it is
it is. It is.
But like, I don't know, do you think like people, because I've seen those memes, and you know, I have those friends who've told me I just like to tie knots in my brain, and I wonder if it's like how we view depth is different. You know, like sometimes you think you're talking about the same thing because you're using the same word, but are you actually talking about the same thing? What is it to them that makes them say and believe that life isn't that deep, and that you shouldn't inquire further into it? Is it because when we start digging, the first thing that we hit is the mud, you know, and the uncomfortableness of that layer of feelings that we've been suppressing, and so it's perceived as like hard, difficult, painful, and so why would you go there? And I feel like it's like you stop at that but just keep going, and that's where the richness is.
I think definitely that. And also a bit of I think things like the good girl syndrome, you know, that because I remember being a kid and being told off for being curious and asking too many questions, and that ties into it. But also a lot of people, I feel, don't, it's like a need to know basis, you know, like I think that there are so many people that just go about their day, they go to work, they come home, it's like, you know, not wanting to think about anything. The comfort
the comfort of knowing for sure. I'm just gonna backtrack just a little bit. Makes me really sad that you had that experience of like being curious and being told that that wasn't a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. Makes me sad too for my younger self. Yeah. And it is something that I have had to work through and still continuously work through, that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay not to know everything. It's okay to be I want to say wrong, but I know that it's not really about being like right or wrong, but it's more like, it's okay not to know everything. And
Yeah.
yeah, what that experience taught me was that you have to know everything. It's not okay to ask questions because you should know.
Yeah.
And that's not fun, is it?
No,
Like, no one likes to
no.
know it all.
And no one does.
No one knows
And
everything.
even like, because
Yeah.
we tend to regard, scientists as researchers, as people who
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But what they do is research to reprove what they know, to prove that it is something real.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
things like set in stone and everything evolves, even in science,
Yeah.
especially in science. That's what they're meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I'm glad we're having this conversation, because one of the reasons why we started this podcast was to talk about all things business, being a conscious business owner, but also the link between the spiritual journey. And I think that in my experience anyway, it can be lonely sometimes when you are not surrounded and not having these kinds of conversations, because people do say things like, it's not that deep, or like, of course, like there's no such thing as reincarnation, or it's like
How the fuck do you know?
yes. And like you know I just I don't sometimes it does blow my mind, in the same way that we've not explored the whole of the ocean. It blows my mind that people do believe that reincarnation isn't real, or like that. I'm not saying, and I don't mean that to like offend people or tell you what's right or wrong. Again, like, I don't know, but it's like, when you've had real experiences and you want to share those experiences, spiritual experiences, I mean, then who is someone to tell you that you are wrong, or that what you believe doesn't exist, or that it's not okay to be curious and ask questions?
Yeah. I mean, I'm doing a mental check of like who's in my life, and I'm like, I've been pretty brutal over the past few years about who gets to be a part of my life.
Yeah.
But I really feel like if those conversations about not knowing and inquiring and just being curious about life don't have a place, it just, to me, it just shows like how people are gripped to a level of certainty, and how much it like jars their inner safety when you come and destabilize it with questions, which are not accusations. It's literally just a question of like, what do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm laughing because I went to a Catholic school for my last year of school, and I studied religions, and I asked my teacher, so what do you reckon about reincarnation? And she was just like, well, I don't think it's the belief of Catholicism, but it's other people believe that. But there was space for that possibility of something different than what she believes to exist, and I really respected that.
Yeah.
And I remember asking, in the same kind of vein, my math teacher, like, so what's the point of knowing this? Like, why are we learning this? She was just like, Anna, it's in the curriculum. Just she was like, this is not a philosophy class, this is a math class, just study,
Get it done.
just do it. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I was like, it's
Yeah.
a non-satisfactory satisfactory answer, because I was just like, okay, fair enough. But I don't know, I think I've always had a very inquisitive mind, and I've always found really cool things,
Yeah.
you know. I keep coming back to that. It's just like, yeah, maybe you don't want to be curious because you stop at the bit where it's uncomfortable, but allow yourself to have your certainties moved a little bit. You don't know what you'll find on the other side. And it is that deep.
It really is that deep. Yeah. I'd love to know if who else has experienced this kind of thing, like people being told that it's not that deep, or that they're overthinking, or that, you know, just, I think it's just those things, it's just those passing comments, and no one means any harm by it. Like, genuinely,
Oh, no.
I don't think it's not said in a
Quite the
malicious
opposite.
way.
I think they
Yeah.
mean like, stop
Yeah.
causing yourself harm and just,
Yes. Like, they're trying to be really helpful and
yeah.
supportive, but it kind of does have that opposite effect. And yeah, I'd love to know, like, how that has been received, and know that this is your support group and we are all here together.
We are
It
here
is
for all
that
the
deep.
deep chats. And yeah, and it does like link back again, like you were saying, to the good girl syndrome, because then you're perceived as too much.
Yeah.
Because you want, you know, like I remember having a friend, she was just like, yeah, but you don't do like, you know, like chat, like you meet someone and you go like straight in, and that's what you really like. And I was like, yeah, fair call.
Yeah.
And that can be perceived as too much, but as I read, and I absolutely love this sentence, if I'm too much, go find less. Not my problem, you know, like so
I love that.
Yeah, it's like, if my inquisitive mind is too much for someone, then they're not my person, they're not like my people, you know. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I really love that.
Because it's that deep.
Yeah, it is. It is. But also, like, it's, you know, have we talked about this before on the podcast? Communication in general, you know, is about being open and allowing lots of different opinions and thoughts, and those are good conversations. That's good communication. Shutting someone down is not communication. So
And
you can totally have different beliefs with someone, but just being open is very different to being like, stop thinking that. And
and shutting yourself off to life. You're not communicating with life. So you're not communicating with a power that is so much bigger than you. And you can call it life, universe, God, like whatever. But it is undeniable that there is forces that are much, much bigger than us. And if you're cutting yourself off to the possibility of that happening, like that existing, or cutting yourself off from inquiring deeper into life, you're not communicating with life, and so you're limiting your ability to learn and to listen. And it's at the end of the day, it's you that you're I was gonna say creating harm to, but that's maybe a little bit, too harsh and big and deep. But yeah, you're not communicating with the biggest power there is. Like, how limiting is that for you in your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
That applies to business and everything else, and personal life and everything. It's just, and then it's like, well, yeah, things can feel overwhelming and you can feel really small because you're not talking to the big Nemo reference, the big blue.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think about the Matrix, that, once you have seen it, I
Can't
can't,
unsee it.
yeah, I can't remember which like pill it is to take to go back, or
Yeah.
And I definitely shut off this part of me for a really long time in my younger years. And I can see how it might feel easier to do that, because it is a bit scary, maybe because it is unknown and all of that. But now I feel like I could not go back. And like, of course I probably could force myself, but why would I want to? That would be
You could
really
only
sad.
force yourself for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And why would
So
you want to? Like,
yeah. So an invitation for all of us to keep going, keep peeling back the layers, keep asking all the questions. And yeah, I want to say it's like keep discovering your authentic self, because that's really what it's about, isn't it?
And keep like inquiring. If you think you've hit your authentic self, just keep going.
Yeah, love that.
Always keep going. There is so much more potential. There's so much more possibility. It's just like, I'm starting to sound like a 1990s like motivation.
Yeah, but it is.
There's so much more possibility. It's only waiting for you to like lean into it, open yourself to it.
Yeah,
it's like it's right there, and just have to. And it's not like incessantly looking for a treasure, like pirates would do, and obsess their life around like there's always more. It's ooh, I wonder what's there if I keep going.
yeah, I love this idea that I say you, but I mean like anyone listening, anyone, you don't even know your full potential. Like, your full potential is beyond what you can even imagine for yourself.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's so much bigger than you. And I feel like, like those moments we call like spiritual awakenings, or whatever word that we want to put on those moments where we have a glimpse of our full potential, of the infinite space that we are. Sometimes I think, and this is my experience, when you say like once you've had that pill and you know what's there, you can't go back. Personally, I have tried to go back, because who I was in that moment felt so small compared to what I caught a glimpse of. You're like, I could never. And so you like retreat back into that comfort known space of certainty. But there's a little part of you that's caught a glimpse, and you're like, there is more. It is deeper. I'm gonna keep and then I don't think it's something that you ever reach. That's why I say, like, once you've hit that full authentic self, just keep going, because I'm certain that there is always more, there's always deeper, there's always bigger, there's yeah
and to that point, there's always more. And that's another thing. It's like we hear often, like, just be happy with what you have,
with what you've got.
with what you've got. And that's not to say that you can't be happy with what you've got, or that, you know, you're not happy. It's just that you know that there's more to explore, and that's totally okay.
Oh yeah, it's be completely fully grateful for what you have and keep going. I feel like, you know, adventurers and explorers, like, they'll talk about all their adventures like they were the most incredible thing, but that doesn't mean that they stop.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, so why should you stop exploring
like
your authentic
Cousteau,
self? Or
he was the first to like film underwater images and to dive. Keep going with our daily theme of the ocean.
Yeah.
He did that for his whole life. His son took over, and he left like this whole legacy of always going to explore the depth of the ocean to try and figure out what's there and to show it to other people. Like, that was a big part of his work as well. Like, he was filming underwater and showing it to others. So go inquire, be curious, and then share that, and make people be excited to go there. Because personally, like, I'm sure you can hear this, but I grew up watching his documentaries, and it always made me want to go and swim in the ocean and go dive, and it made me less scared of it. So so it is that deep.
I love it, and that's a good place to end.
Yeah. And wrapping it up here.
Yeah, it's one of these topics that I feel like we could keep going and going. I mean,
yeah, it's that deep.
Yeah, and I think that's why sometimes I struggle to, like, even, like, when I think about like what I want to say, I'm like, I don't even know where to start. It like just comes, and it's like just it's just so much. So yeah, let's leave it here, and we can always come back to this another time.
And I would love to hear people's interpretation of how deep it is, and like how you feel about this. Cool.
And thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll see you next week.